Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, joined by the Trashman here on this Friday before the Super Bowl and before Valentine's Day. Trashman?
It's going to be a lot of divided households this weekend.
What kind of self-respecting man in America has a sweetheart that won't let him watch the Super Bowl? Come on.
We're going to find out.
They did a poll. They did a poll that said how many people were like NFL fans, recently, and it was so great, like 58% of Americans or something like that. But it was something like 70%, even if 70% of the total, even though only 58 they consider themselves some level of fan, were planning to watch the Super Bowl. I don't think anybody's sweethearts.
All the girls I hang out with are really surprised when I tell them, when they find out how into football I am.
I'm sure
as a shock.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today about the write-ups that you've done on Chris Olave and Charleston Rambo. I've edited the one on Charleston Rambo. This will be the video to supplement it. I have not read or edited or added my thoughts in, as I do to so many of these that you write about Chris Olave, but I've certainly done the work on him. I wanted to start with Rambo though, because and we'll also talk a little bit of, before we get to that, we were talking off air about the Kyler Murray stuff. And I just thought maybe I'm going to have a couple of dynasty topics that we talk about at the very end. But before we do, just with the Kyler stuff, are you even considering that with the dynasty rankings on the guys? Because DeAndre, all the associated pieces obviously would be, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk. I saw the Christian Kirk just this week. He's going to be a topic of contract discussions. And, he had said this week that his plans for the future are going to rely pretty heavily around what's going on with Kyler, which gives you some kind of hint. But then DeAndre Hopkins was on Radio Row this week with SiriusXM NFL Radio, and I heard him, and he said that he doesn't know anything about this stuff going on with Kyler. He said maybe he's just trying to get rid of the old photos because they have some new threads for this year, and he doesn't want to show off the old. I guess the Cardinals have some new jerseys or something. But then I saw it was weird. I'm looking right now at I'll share my screen. I'm looking now at the Arizona Cardinals Instagram page, and they only have 2 posts on there. It's like they scrubbed their Instagram page too. Huh. So could this be coordinated? Could this be something that's coordinated? Because it says it says here at the top. It said whenever you click on the Google link when you're searching for this, it says they have 10.5K posts. So they had 10,500 posts. Their social media manager came in and he deleted all but 2 posts. The one post of Kyler Murray holding up his number 1 at the combine.
Maybe that's also because they have the new swag.
And then the one of Kyler Murray at the Pro Bowl throwing the football to CeeDee Lamb for the touchdown, and it said just like old times, I guess, just like old times back at Oklahoma.
Well, maybe that backs up, them having new threads.
Yeah, I don't know. So it could be
the picture of the old one.
Is it about nothing?
I guess I'm having to factor it in just because it's kind of slow. Otherwise, if we're talking about players moving around in the rankings, not much is going on right now. And, there's such, it's all Super Bowl talk right now and coaching changes. So, it's definitely something I'm considering.
Let me give you another idea for the rankings updates this week, because I talked about this. I went on the Road to Wonder World show with Cody and with Matt, and the subject came up of, Tom Brady, his retirement and everything like that. And the fact of the matter is that, Ronald Jones likely not to be back next year. Leonard Fournette likely not to be back next year. So I think Keyshawn Vaughn is somebody that we might be able to look at and get up a little bit. You just wonder how they're probably going to bring somebody else in, But, as I got to thinking about it and talking about it, that is like a luxury offensive line that was built for Tom Brady to keep him upright.
Yeah.
And they're now going to have it's not going to be a luxury car back there now if it's, Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask or who knows who they might bring in.
I'm kind of hoping that maybe they'll bring Jameis back. I know it's unlikely, but
they're not going to do that, trash man. That's like getting back together with the abusive ex.
Hey, it happens more often than not.
That's probably true. But I do think, though, that could be, even if they bring in another runner, because we talked about the idea maybe like a Dameon Pierce or somebody like that going to Tampa as a 1-2 punch with Keyshawn Vaughn.
See, I feel like he would be kind of redundant with Vaughn. I think they're kind of similar, at least build-wise.
I think they probably see Vaughn as a little bit more of a receiver, whereas Dameon Pierce didn't show too much of that on his profile.
I saw he was good. He didn't have as much in his profile, but at the Senior Bowl,
he didn't just have good catches. He had like acrobatic, like ridiculous catches.
Yeah.
So I do think that he could, maybe do something Dameon Pierce out of Florida, and we'll have all of our write-ups done and all of our videos like this done of the running backs as soon as we get through the wide receivers. We like to just stay in the one lane with the wide receivers because as we go through these guys, we're ranking them, we're updating the profiles as new information comes in, and it's just better to have a one-track mind with these as opposed to flipping from one to the other to the other. So if you're looking for our running back takes, we're going to have those soon, but we're going to get through about probably 14 or 15 more of these wide receiver profiles before we dive into running backs. So with that being said, Trash Man, let's talk about Charleston Rambo. Do you just go over, tell the people about Charleston Rambo?
He's not a huge guy, 6'1", 185 pounds, but he plays with a really high motor. He's got that dog in him. He plays with aggression. Even though he is kind of on the smaller, not smaller,
He's too thin through his legs.
He's
too thin through his legs and his ankles.
But he's a good blocker. He's a persistent blocker.
I understand, but he's going to get hurt. And here's the thing.
Well, I did say that he takes a lot of punishment, and that was one of my caveats with kind of the way that he plays.
He measured in at the Shrine Game at 180 pounds. He was listed at 185 pounds. So a little bit disappointing there. As far as his production at Miami, I guess was he a redshirt senior in Miami? As far as his production there, it was good. 27% of the team's receptions, 30% of the team's receiving yards, 23% of the team's receiving touchdowns. But Trashman's, I had to take executive oversight and just erase your comp of Stephon Diggs off the we can't be comping Charleston Rambo to Stephon Diggs. I know he's tough. I know he's a dog, like you say. I know he has that mentality. He's too small through his lower body, I think.
With those comps, I try to do some sort of physical comp, and also I look at like a high like an upside, and then a more maybe reasonable. So I had Stephon Diggs, but I also had D. Eskridge out there. That.
I think that's good. And whenever I, do you know the first guy I thought of when I looked at him? I thought, as far as just an all around, I think he's got a good all around game. I love his stems at the line of scrimmage. I love the way he can sink into his routes at the transition point. I think that he
sells his routes well.
He can certainly get open. He can separate. He works with Coach D. Rob in Dallas. Yes, since he was in high school, so he's going to be good in those parts of his game. When you put those things together and you look at his body, with the way that his body generally looks, does he not look like Dante Pettis to you?
I don't think of Dante Pettis as kind of like a speed player, though, a speed guy.
Do you think Charleston Rambo is going to run super fast?
I think he's projected to run mid 4.4s.
I don't think that's too far off from what people would have projected out of Dante Pettis. I even went back and watched some of Dante Pettis' Washington tape, and I think the two guys just look stylistically pretty similar.
I think Dante Pettis is more of a maybe more of a finesse player than a Rambo.
I think that Dante Pettis, for one, I think that Rambo plays with some finesse. But I agree. I agree with you that he's a tough player. Like, he doesn't look like he should be that good a blocker for kind of how small he is, and he's not like really that's. It's not like small. He's just.
It's just his maybe it's his build, his bone structure. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I guess he seems a bit slighter.
Yeah, but not slider in the CeeDee Lamb way, where he's like, he's just long, lanky,
sinewy.
Yeah, it's just a different kind of slight through the lower legs and ankles and stuff. It's just you always think he's going to twist his ankle and end up getting hurt. Dante Pettis, I guess, did he not run at the combine? Maybe he didn't run at the combine. I'd be interested to see what he ran at his pro day, because I don't remember off the top of my head. But did he really?
I just don't recall him. I mean, I just don't remember that being a big factor of his game.
Dante Pettis didn't even run at his pro day. He was still injured then. So I don't really know. Maybe that's one where it's just, maybe Pettis isn't right. He reminded me so much of him. I went back and watched that. Diggs isn't right. I think D. Eskridge is fine. I think that's fine. I don't think he's as fast as D. Eskridge. So maybe we could think of a comp somewhere sort of in there. So you talked about the things you liked about his game. You liked his route running, right? You liked his stems at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I liked his route run. I like that he's got a really expansive catch radius. I mean, considering he isn't like a huge guy, he's able to bring in a lot of balls.
Long arms. Almost 32-inch arms, and
long arms,
9 5/8-inch hands. So I mean, yeah, he can go up and get it if he needs to, for sure.
Yeah, and he catches the ball in stride. That keeps that speed up. He's got great field awareness, knowing where he is on the field at all times. It seems like, in catching some of those balls, and then running after the catch. And I really like his name. I
remember when he was in high school when he committed to OU. I said that's the coolest receiver name.
That's a name that Key and Peele are bummed that they didn't come up with.
Yeah, for sure. Did you look into or like wonder at all what happened, why he wanted to leave Oklahoma? And
I think it's just because he wasn't getting the playing time.
Yeah. Maybe he was a bit of a
disappointment. If you look at his production at Oklahoma, I mean, it pales in comparison to what he did at Miami. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, just like at an outside glance, it seems like he just wasn't getting the playing time. Oklahoma, historically has had. I mean, they have good receivers and they tend to spread the ball out quite a bit.
I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
I just think at Miami he was just more of a, they had fewer weapons. And he's a bigger cog in that offense.
He stood out a lot more in Miami, for sure. And he was a standout player at the Shrine Game practices. We weren't there at the Shrine Game, but from all the reports that we hear, people we've talked to behind the scenes, he was good there. I saw that our friend, what's his name? Football Game Plan, Emery. I forget Emery's last name, but he was there. He put up some clips of the wide receiver DB one-on-ones, and I mean, you could see Rambo. I think I would imagine he's probably the best receiver there because, I mean, outside of the things we talked about, taking a lot of punishment, late breakout age, didn't break out until he was in Miami, right? He even though we like his stems at the line of scrimmage, Trashman thought he could struggle a little bit with press. I think that he's probably getting over that. If he's working with D-Rob, he's going to get over that. I thought he looked fine in the reps I saw there.
Well, I mean, I think for me, it was just like in situations sometimes where he could have just used his speed. He kind of goes for he picks the fight.
Oh, I get it, and that's why I kind of understand how you kind of had the digs. It's like I get it. He does look like a dog. I don't think that. I don't think this is a player with a similar upside to Diggs or anything that we saw out of him whenever we were watching him coming out of college. But with that being said, I do think even though this was a Shrine Game guy, Charleston Rambo, as I kind of rank these guys in real time, like we said, we want to do all the want to do with the wide receivers all at once. So like they're fresh on our minds. So when we go back through and we're having to rank these guys in real time, right? So we put out our rankings for our pro members. It isn't like we're having to think back and stuff. Like I do them as these profiles go up, right? And I think I like Charleston Rambo better than a lot of the guys that were at the Senior Bowl. I mean, better than a lot of them that were at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I get to wondering, like, do I like Charleston Rambo better than? To me, it's like I know I like Jalen Tolbert better. I know I like Christian Watson better. I know I like Calvin Austin better. But I mean, other than that, I mean, do you really like a Romeo Doubs or a Danny Gray or a Braylon Sanders or a Bo Melton much better than Charleston Rambo?
No, I mean, I don't think those guys are necessarily better route runners. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Shakir, just in kind of their motor, but I think he's got better hands than Shakir.
Well, that Trashman, you're clinging on to the idea that these guys are spirited like dogs who play football, right? That's the same way that Khalil Shakir plays, right? What we saw at the Senior Bowl, that it didn't necessarily just, he's a dog and stuff, but he's a dog that drops footballs and he has a little more trouble separating than we thought, etc. I think that if Rambo plays the way that he plays at the pro level, he's going to end up getting himself hurt. He's going to get hurt.
That's what it seems like.
And Rambo had a better
but until that happens, is it pure speculation?
Do you like do you like Rambo better than Danny Gray from SMU?
From what I've seen.
Do you like it better than Bo Melton from Rutgers?
I think he's more of a prototypical receiver than a Bo Melton.
What about Dubs, who can't get off press?
Dubs got open.
But Trashman, it happened 4 times where he got shut down at the line of scrimmage.
That's true.
And just one-on-ones where he just gave up on the rep.
That's true.
Some of the literally.
If you're looking like consistency, I think Rambo would be more consistent, perhaps. Yeah.
So Rambo should have been at the Senior Bowl. He seems like a perfect kind of guy that would want to be at the Senior Bowl. I feel like the Shrine Game got a better wide receiver than the Senior Bowl did at a bunch of their different spots.
Maybe it was because it's really is only 1 year of consistent production.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Chris Olave. I haven't read it. So do you want to go first, and you can say your piece? Do you want me to say my piece first?
I can say how I felt about him.
All right.
Well,
and this is Chris Olave. He's the wide receiver from Ohio State. He's a senior.
The thing that I noticed, I think he's one of the more NFL ready receivers that I've seen. So far, he's a really complete route runner. He's not a tough guy. He's not going to win a lot of fights. I think the biggest attractor for me was his play strength, but he's able to create separation at the line through his footwork, and he's got good lateral movement. Really good body control and field awareness. A lot of toe touch catches on the sidelines. Really secure hands. He's able to change speeds really well in his routes. And then he kind of shows off his speed. Once he breaks open. And just really can play at all levels of the field. Can play inside, outside, out of the backfield. He's a quarterback's friend. He can break his routes and get open when he needs to. When the play breaks down. Really good footwork as well. I think he's just a really complete receiver.
Who did you comp him to?
I comped him to Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson.
Ridley's fine. I think that's fine. I had some. Yeah, I think Ridley's a good one. Here's my deal. What do you think about his speed?
I thought his speed looked good. I thought he was he looked quick. It's kind of deceptive maybe because he changes speeds a lot. But I think, when he breaks open, I mean, he looked fast to me. And I think he's projected to be in the low 4.4s.
Yeah. Well, okay. So as far as the speed, they at Ohio State, they do all the testing and stuff during the off seasons and everything like that. And so there were some leaked photos of the board last year where they had their 40 times up on the board, and it had both Chris Olave and Justin Fields at 4.38.
Wow.
Now, if we extrapolate that and we say, okay, well, that's home cooking Ohio State, hand times. And we say, okay, Justin Fields at his pro day ran it was officially a 4.44. So it was a 4.44. So at the combine, that probably would have been a 4.47, 4.48, maybe even a 4.49. Like if you want to do it like Matt Kelly, like a player profiler, and Cody and those guys do, you add 0.5 seconds onto the pro day to adjust.
I feel like Fields would be a player who's more prone to maybe putting on weight, and that at his position.
Chris Olave will not run sub 4.4. I think he looks fast, but he's going to run in the 4.4s. I think he'll run in the 4.4. I don't think you run a bogus 4.38 hand time and then don't end up running 4.4s. I think that's probably what he's going to run. And I think that the speed is evident in the way whenever he gets the football. It's so weird about this guy when he gets the football. I mean, he's the leading receiving touchdown scorer in all of Ohio State football history, which, I mean, that should just tell you something about Chris Olave. And think about the great wide receivers who've been there. Now, he did come back. He said he wanted to come back to get his degree. He said football doesn't last forever and stuff. So he did have 4 years. A lot of these guys come out after 3. But I mean, I think it was 35 touchdowns, Trashman. It was like something just incredible. The all-time leader, overtaking, I believe, David Boston. You guys can check me on that, but I think that was the case. And one of the reasons why is like when he gets the football in his hand, something like Trashman, he'll catch the ball like the 40-yard line. And like you said, he'll kind of like tap his toes in, and you think he's going to go out of bounds or something like that. Then he's kind of cuts back in. You're like, holy shit, Olave's going to take this thing the goddamn distance. Like he takes good angles to where like the pursuit angles are. It's tough to get a pursuit angle on him. He zigs and zags all around. Like I'm surprised your scouting report on him didn't say anything about kind of having a nose for the end zone, because you always look for that. And he does. It isn't like he's targeted always down in the end zone, man. But if he's 20 yards out and you give that guy a little shred of an opening, it's wild to me how it's like you just start thinking to yourself, holy shit, Olave's going to score here. It's just super wild to me. So yeah, very opportunistic
point. I mean, to me, it was. I mean, I think maybe I noticed that he was just always kind of open.
And here's the most important thing that when we talk about him, it's the separation. He's always open. It's the body control. It's the tracking ability. It's the adjustment ability. Like Trashman, how many throws did you see on the down the field throws where it looked like it was going to be one where he's going to catch it over this shoulder, but then he turns his head around and he catches it over this shoulder. You're just like, well, it doesn't seem like a big deal until you realize like that's actually a really big deal. It takes a real technical magician to be able to do those kinds of things. And I was like, as I was watching the film, I said, is this like a Ridley's a good comp. I was thinking, is this like a rich man's Deshaun Hamilton kind of deal? And then when I think about,
I almost forgot about him.
Well, when I think about a rich man's Deshaun Hamilton, I think of Marvin Harrison. Like that's kind of what I think about. This guy.
Marvin Harrison's a good comp.
It's just like he's skin. He's kind of
yeah. I mean, their body type are very similar.
It looks like him, the tracking ability, the hands, the always getting open, the silky smooth routes, the precision. I got to wondering him like, okay, do I like this guy better than Jahan Dotson is my question. And when I get to thinking about it, I'm like, okay, on this football team at Ohio State, where he was not really, as far as this year, as far as touchdowns, yeah, he was an alpha. But as far as just overall, only 19% of the team's receptions, only 19% of the team's receiving yards, 28% of the team's receiving touchdowns. So basically, Garrett Wilson, his teammate, was better in his market share of receptions, his market share of receiving yards, only slightly worse, 12 touchdowns versus 13 for Chris Olave. But then there's this other guy, number 11. And I forget, he's a sophomore. I forget his name. It's like Jackson Smith in Jigba or something like that. Jackson Smith in Jigba. And he might be, that's a guy that's biting off a lot of market share from both of these guys, because he's like, that guy's a stud. We're going to be talking about him next year as the Ohio State receiver that we're talking about. But whenever I texted Cody earlier when I was doing my work on Olave, and I asked him, do you like Olave better than Dotson? And he said, yes, he does. And his reasoning was, even though he doesn't comp them like this, he says it reminds him so much of Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham whenever they were at LSU, where Garrett Wilson's kind of like the Odell Beckham, the flashy, big play monster, whereas just the workman, like, get it done, play after play after play, being able to get open and being able to separate, be able to be technical, and to be very efficient that way, almost in the way to where statistically, at least in the touchdown department and stuff, you're a little bit of an alpha, right? And that's kind of like the Olave. So to me, I finally just came to the fact, I'm like, well, Jahan Dotson's a guy who I have a pretty clear comp of, like Deontay Johnson. I look at that guy and I see Deontay Johnson. I look at Chris Olave and I see shades of Marvin Harrison. I see shades like, as soon as you mentioned Calvin Ridley, that made a ton of sense to me. So if I'm just talking about those comps and you're looking at the type of players that Olave had around him, it's like you can go this one way and you can say, okay, he had these players around him. And it's like the Cedric Wilson corollary that we talked about in Mobile, right? Where it's like Cedric Wilson's not going to be any good if he goes to another team, because he's not going to have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb taking all the emphasis off of him, right? It could be that Chris Olave, maybe if he put him on a team and he's expected to be the featured guy, he could have a little bit of trouble. Or it could be like, hey, if you concentrated more targets on Chris Olave, he's going to continue to be a baller. And with that extra volume, he's just going to have added efficiency. And I tend, just with the way that he plays, with the traits that he possesses, I tend to be on the side of extra volume will lead to extra efficiency with a player at this level.
No, I think so. I mean, he's just he's so technically sound, but also athletic. I mean, I think really wherever you put him, he's going to thrive. I mean, I see him being a fit really anywhere on any team. I mean, I think he's just such a well-rounded player. I mean, I think it's kind of rare that you get someone who's that technically sound and is good a route runner, who's also has such good body control and speed, and athleticism. Really, the only detractor for me is his strength, his play strength. I mean, we're not. I don't think they're really gonna, they're gonna call for that from him, in the next level that much. I mean, Marvin Harrison wasn't a strength guy. He wasn't, that guy. He could block. He could do what you need him to do, but
you don't need him to even do that. You need him to go be Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
With Chris Olave, you just need Chris Olave to go be Chris Olave. So the wide receivers that we've done so far, in no particular order, are Reggie Roberson, Alec Pierce, Trey Turner, Dontario Drummond, Khalil Shakir, Velus Jones, Braylon Sanders, Bo Melton, Danny Gray, Romeo Doubs, Charleston Rambo, Calvin Austin, Christian Watson, Jalen Tolbert, Jahan Dotson. Do you?
I was gonna say real quick. You know what the thing is for me with Olave, with a lot of these guys, I think a lot of them are good and have good traits, but it's really going to depend on where they land. I feel that Olave doesn't have that issue.
As long as he doesn't land at Baltimore, please God.
Maybe
Jesus Christ. That's where these guys, Tylen Wallace, Rashad Bateman, these guys go to wither and die. Did you see the news about how they're not even so sure about getting the Lamar Jackson extension done this offseason anymore? Just they'd be dumb not to, I think, but maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, so those are the wide receivers we've done so far. We've done 16 or 17 of these. You can find the videos here on YouTube. You can find our write-ups over at rosterwatch.com between Trashman and I. But Trashman, just before we get out of here, I mean, I've mentioned all those names. Chris Olave does he just go right to the top? Is he currently number one in the clubhouse as far as the guys that we've done so far for you?
I don't have an argument against that.
Well, I'll tell you this. For me, I'll be a lot more straightforward. The answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes.